DAMS, P6, 161 points. Ayumu Iwasa, a driver I did not expect to be really praising as highly as they are, finished ahead of Jack Doohan in the standings in the end. The second top rookie, only 7 points behind Logan Sargent in the end. We've also got to talk about Roy Nissany, who had another Roy Nissany-esque season. DAMS, yeah, the midfield's been very much a midfield team for a little while, possibly not fulfilling their potential. Iwasa, though, did show what the Red Bull Junior team should be about, with having very quick drivers you don't expect doing well. Josh Revell, two drivers again who one high, one not so high. The team end up therefore around the midfield.
Start off with Iwasa. Extremely good season. I did not expect him to be doing as well as what he did. Not to say that I underestimated him in terms of like he was just a bit of a merchant of years that gone by. It was a case of like we had so many drivers coming into this year who looked the goods, and especially with Red Bull backing, and in a lot of ways he was a better Red Bull driver this year. So you take all of that, it being his debut year, and it was just impressive as hell. I wouldn't necessarily say unlucky not to get top three, because if you have a look at people down the championship ladder, there was a lot of bad luck being thrown around. But, irrespective, we're going to judge individually here. Fantastic season. Heading into next year, you got to think he's going to be in with a good chance, because DAMS aren't a bad team. They can hook up a car pretty damn well. And he executed it well. And unlike a lot of the hot guns that came through from Japan, he's not someone that necessarily oversteps the mark a lot of the time. It's actually good, consistent driving without a lot of mistakes, which is something that you want to see out of a Japanese driver, because I feel that's sort of been the Achilles heel of some of the prospects that have come to Europe, is sometimes they will be extremely fast, but be a bit more mistake prone than others, which would just be a damper. But Iwasa's not that way, which is great to see. As for Nissany has got some speed to him, but he's a maniac. And there's been times this year, I think, was it Bahrain, where he was just going on track, off track, just going everywhere. Not understanding the boundaries of the track while darting in and out, battling with other people. It's like, this guy's going to cause a freaking accident. And Silverstone, that incident with Helga, where he just threw him off the track and bloody well had the car come over his head. It's like, Halo's not there. You're not here either. It may sound like I'm being unfair to the dude, but I'm not really. I understand what he has there. People don't want to see it because he caused so many accidents, like Maldonado. Like Maldonado could hustle a car if he wanted to, but he just had that issue of being allergic to finishing races. Nissany has that same kind of thing. He just needs to calm the frick down, because it hampered him this year badly when it didn't need to. And we saw in Abu Dhabi that he's got some speed. So, no, I don't know. It was an extremely hot and cold season from Nissany, whereas from Iwasa, it was just like we just saw potential quite a lot of the time. And France, in particular, I thought was a fantastic win from him. So, yeah. Tyler?
Iwasa was a breath of fresh air this year. Really was. My most favourite driver of the year. If it wasn't for how good Dragovic just was, I'd actually consider giving him an A+, because of the fact that I think he's come from such a low expectation. The bottom of the 5 Red Bull juniors coming into this year, we are including Vips in that, that he genuinely probably had the best year in terms of where you want them to be. He exceeded it, and no other Red Bull driver did. Even Lawson, I think, was probably on expectation, you could argue, maybe slightly below. Iwasa really did have a great season, and if it wasn't for the fact that, again, just took obviously a little bit of time, but not even that much time when you consider it, a team like DAMS, which hasn't really experienced so much in the last couple of years. I think that he really took them back up and where they wanted to be with their new management as well with Charles Peak. So lovely to see Iwasa there. Nissany, I think he's going next year, which will be interesting because I don't know what will happen. I feel like if we lose Nissany from the sport, will it go under? But he had the biggest, I think the biggest, apart from maybe when Raghunathan blocked Monaco, biggest meme moment in recent history, that Imola crash where he was genuinely well on favourite for a feature race victory. On pace, really, when you consider drivers like Yuri Vips made massive mistakes and crashed out, he then does it in a really embarrassing way. And I spoke to him before Abu Dhabi and he said that it still haunts him. And it's interesting because you never really think about drivers like that or what happens after. But I think that and the Hauger crash that he had has actually calmed him down. But I think it's way too late for him, so shame. But yeah, that Imola crash was one of the most tragic things I've seen in Formula 2 history.
Let's go on scores then. Let's start with Roy. Tyler, you were just talking about him. Where would you give him in terms of our grading system?
I'd say a C plus. C minus. I think that he's been in the game long enough, so that's why he's made progression. He has made progression, which is why he's not a D. But yeah, like the fact that he was in good positions at times this season and he didn't convert shows that he's clearly still not at that level. So I think so.
Josh, you're deep in thought there with your thoughts for Nissany's score.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think of the races that he did and what he was doing pace wise and what he could have done, all that kind of witchcraft stuff. But at the same time, you got a good sort of good level to measure yourself up against. It's his teammate. Was he near his teammate this year? That's the answer to your question. Was it really? I don't know what I said there. I hope it sounded like English. But
that makes sense too. It wasn't Iwasa, right? That's fair to say.
Yeah. So I think I might have to agree on the C minus there because I'll reiterate this again. I understand the guy's potential. He's not a slow driver. He was his own worst enemy a lot of the time. And if one's being completely honest, he wasn't quite on the level of Iwasa. Then again, Iwasa proves, I won't say he proved a lot of people wrong. He just exceeded a lot of expectations this year. So, yeah, C minus for Nissany.
Yeah, I think that's a fairly fair representation of his year. Iwasa, meanwhile, Tyler, you were saying potentially the star of the season, if not for Dragovic. You were looking at an A, I think you said. Josh, do you think that's fair?
Yes. By the way, when I was talking about the Japanese drivers there coming in and sort of just being error prone, I was more referring to Formula One drivers. Like we saw, for example, like you take Takuma Sato, for example. There's just one example, and he would have moments of just great speed, and then next thing you know, he just hurled into a wall in just the weirdest way possible. It's just such a shame because that there are drivers like Naoki Yamamoto and Tomoki Najiri, and you see them over there. It's just like, why didn't they go over there? Ratomo Miyata as well. They didn't get over there. They didn't even race in Europe, let alone try out Formula One. So it's frustrating knowing that the consistency can be there for those drivers. Tsunoda had a rough, beginning to it all, I guess. Just crashing into his own teammate, and Silverstone was not a good start. But Iwasa wasn't prone to any of that.